gay shame, queer feelings. When we think about gay pride, we think, why do we say pride? Where is this coming from? This whole idea of being proud of someone's sexuality, of someone's gender identity, of gender performativity. Why should we be proud of something that is so intimate, so my personal, individual question? And so we know that queer is a struggle for words. Probably nobody here grew up as an English speaker. Or is there any native English speaker here? So what is interesting is that queer, as you might know, has been always and is still a word that should hurt people in some places. So for some people, calling somebody queer means calling somebody strange, not normal. I don't know what is the word. Is there a word in Slovak that is kind of not nice, nasty word for queer people?
Divný? Divný?
Divný?
Could be.
It's
not that nasty, but it's still like something that's weird.
Yeah. Do people use it also as a term for themselves, for queer people, or is it only used as a nasty word?
It's not really related to this topic.
Yeah. But we know that when we talk about queer, we already see that we need to translate things. And Spivak has a very interesting question about traveling words. The traveling words that are, in some places, a violation that is enabling us. And so if we'd never been hurt by the word queer, why get we enabled? And when do we get enabled? To become more than ourselves, than just the individual take, but to have an insight in being a community. In being a community that is formed by shame. And this is where pride starts. It starts with shame. Or at least the history of gay pride. We know that gay pride has an anniversary this year. It happened that in nights at the end of July '69, people stood up because they were fed up by police violence, the repression. They were having their little underground parties at a place called Stonewall Inn, a bar, a shady bar in Christopher Street in New York City. It was led by the mafia because it was not allowed to give alcoholic drinks to obviously queer people. That this was one law in New York, in the state of New York. You were not allowed to give out alcohol to queer people, and you had to wear at least 3 clothes that were according to your gender. Yeah, I see sometimes, when people start to get these wrinkles on the forehead. What do you mean? Socks and underwear would not count. But if you were in drag, good evening. If you were in drag, or if you were trans, so me wearing a suit, and I'm not talking about my underwear, I would be a criminal going to a bar like the Stonewall Inn. And so what happened at this night, at the end of July '69, the 28th it was, is that the police came usually they came quite early at night, so they would just do these riots, the raidings of the bars. But then there was election in the state of New York, and they thought, okay, we come a little bit later. And they were checking the people's IDs, those people who were in so-called normal dress, they could leave, were kicked out of the bar, and the others, they were put in paddy wagons, so in the police cars, to be driven off to the jail. But there, it was really different that night. That night, these people, and I would like to talk about these people because I think it's also quite important to know who those people were that were using this bar as their communal space to meet. And they were not agreeing with being kicked out of the bar again. So you can imagine that it would not be like this here, where there are windows where people could go by and see who is inside. It was like double wooden doors where you would have to knock. There would be something going like this, and people would look out and see and let you in or not. And it was really like a little fortress. So there was no open windows. It was really a hiding space. And so for those, it was really this question of, can we meet somewhere? Can we have a place somewhere? And it was especially for drag queens, trans people, people of color, young homeless youth, and others that were outcasts. They could not go, they would not have the back rooms or their own apartments where they could have parties and meet. So it was really the one little hole that they could have alcohol, dance, and hook up with somebody, I think. So what followed was 5 nights of police violence and struggles against the police, and there have been movies about the Stonewall Riots. So, and I would like to show you one excerpt from a movie also called Stonewall, and it's a little bit another take, the one newest one. Nope.
Everyone has their own Stonewall legend. That's mine. I maybe didn't get exactly every detail down perfect, but that's the story of my life, honey. What the hell, I am a drag queen. And we don't always deal in reality. You could say we deal in something kind of realer. We deal in dreams. We're American as apple pie.
Remember Stonewall? It was a riot. Five nights. Christopher Street, that's why it is called Christopher Street Day parades in many places. It was the question of liberation, overcoming shame, finding pride in who you are, not hiding anymore. Gay power. And then something started, like something liberation. Nice, really nice, good. But then also, shame doesn't go away that easily. We thought so, but it does not really. And so, you know, all these processes of the individual, you just come out of the closet, you come out on the streets, you liberate yourself, you liberate the streets and so on, and everything is fine. No shame, no sin, nothing. But then we know that being a community that was built by shame, we will be referred again and again back to it. But it sharpens, as Yves Kosowski's Sedgwick says, the sense of what one is. Because shame is not like guilt. Shame is referring to what who somebody is and not what somebody does. And so she's, like Sedgwick says, that this could be the difference if we come out of this individual shame, that there are communities that are being built on shame and can also be political because of that. But so we have got, coming back to Spivak, who said, like, yes, there are enabling violations. We should also see that there is always this double bind, the freeing and the repetition of the violation. So something that is empowering is at the same time repeating the original and is a reminder of what was hurtful before. And this is the very tricky thing when we build communities out of shame, going to pride, into something that is queer feelings. And Spivak is also very clear about that this is also talking to different communities, and we know that in our community we are in an intersectional field where there are different shamings playing on our bodies. The shame to be part of racified effects of ableism, of ageism, and other things where we know that there's a lot of shame. The conference Gay Shame, and it was in 2005 that Hiram Perez, who was the only queer of color who held a speech at the conference. He argued that in these places it's still the case that shame is put on the brown and the black body. So with his text that he entitled "You Can Have My Brown Body and Eat It Too," he also stated that it seems to be the only universalistic white privilege to come away from shame and to put the shame on the brown and the black bodies. So he is also pointing to this question of that the other black and brown bodies that were present at the conference were especially feminized performance artists, for example, Reginald Davis and others, who were invited to entertain, but to also to deal with the bodily shame that is still in the community. So, what happened? What happened is that there's something that we call compulsory optimism. Sorry, I was not really paying attention today when I was not, but at least I finished it somehow. There is something like, to come over shame, you just say something like gay is good. Is it okay? Please. Yeah, I mean, it looks good. There are these campaigns that are called It Gets Better, that are in this idea that once you made it out of high school, which is a shitty place for queer people, everything will be fine. You will live your own life, and then everything will get better. And we will kind of see how gay pride, which is coming from riots, made its way into something really more and more commercial. And I just would like to show you one picture from Amsterdam, where it's a canal pride, so there are floats, like big boats on the canals. So there's no one really able to attend the pride. There's no mishmash of people, there's partying like divided. And then you have this displays of commerce where people present their companies. And here we have this very wonderful slogan, personal pride equals company pride, where my personal individual shame that I was getting rid of can now be taken by the company. And I'm proud because my company puts out rainbow flags. Yes, this is how capitalism works. Anybody who is outcast can be commercialized. There is no morals. You don't mind what you do, who you fuck, if you do it in your wheelchair. It's about the money and power. So one step back to somebody you saw before in a picture already. It's Silvia Rivera, who was during the Stonewall Riots engaged. She was also the figure in the film, and she was a trans activist, doing a lot of homeless work for trans people, sex workers. And already in 1970, just 1 year after the Stonewall Riots, she kind of had to fight to get her place, to get some talk at the manifestation. And it's a very loud and angry voice, but we will listen to it.
I've been trying to get up here all day for your gay brothers and your gay sisters in jail. They're writing me every motherfucking week and ask for your help. And you all don't do a goddamn thing for them. Have you ever been beaten up and raped in jail? Now think about it. They've been beaten up and raped after they haven't spent much of their money in jail to get their stuff home and try to get their sex change. The women have tried to fight for their sex changes or to become women of the women's liberation. And they write STAR, not the women's group. They do not write women. They do not write men. They write STAR. Because we're trying to do something for them. I have been to jail. I have been raped and beaten many times by men, heterosexual men that do not belong in the homosexual shelter. But do you do anything for them? No. You all tell me to go and hide my tail between my legs. I will not longer put up with this shit. I have been beaten. I have had my nose broken. I have been thrown in jail. I have lost my job. I have lost my apartment for gay liberation. And you all treat me this way? What the fuck's wrong with you all? Think about that. I do not believe in a revolution, but you all do. I believe in the gay power. I believe in us getting our rights, or else I would not be out there fighting for our rights. That's all I wanted to say to your people. If you all want to know about the people that are in jail, and do not forget Bambi Lamore, and Dora Marks, Kenny Messner, and other gay people are in jail. Come and see the people at Storehouse on 12th Street, on 640 East 12th Street, between B and C, apartment 14. The people that are trying to do something for all of us, and not men and women that belong to a white middle class, white club, and that's what you all belong to. Revolution now! Give me a G! Give me an A! Give me a Y! Give me a P! Give me an O! Give me a W! Give me an E! Give me an R! Gay power! Louder gay power!
There is a lot of othering in our community, and I know that, for example, there are brown people who try to intervene. So there's always the question, when do we listen? Because they speak. So there's, for example, dark matter, and it gets bitter too. But going back to love, I know it's a little bit hot and cold at the moment, but I think that's the way it goes with these queer feelings. And we know that we now are back to this state of love nations, where we are also called to become part of a new nationalistic movement. And to maybe come closer to this question of what the politics of gay pride within also this European context can do, and this will be just my finalizing thoughts, was this idea of countries that would like to join the EU, that they should, as part of the catalogue that they have to fulfill, they should have gay prides. I think you already, it's typical for countries like Serbia. Like in the succession report every year, like how fit is Serbia to join the EU, is also listed gay pride. Is it possible to hold a gay pride there? And so this is also a quite interesting question in this, what you said also in the introduction, like how do different like Western LGBTIQ communities, activists, organizations go to other countries or the EU, becomes this is the litmus test. This is the test of how you prove that you're mature enough, that your democracy is strong enough to join the EU, to be a good member. And so for countries like Serbia, there were activists trying to do a gay pride, and there was a lot of violence against them. But then it was like the idea, the thought of this is a good idea, that the EU just goes there, and there's a lot of embassies and a lot of big organizations, LGBTIQ organizations, that go to Serbia and say, we are now going to organize gay pride. The reaction of the government was that they say, okay, if you force us to do gay pride, and hooligans and right-wing people and others are destroying the city, because it happened in Belgrade that there was a lot of damage in the city because of the riots on the street, then we need to weaponize our police. We need to militarize our police, and you should give us money. Because if you force us to have gay pride, we should be able to protect it. So this is a photo from Belgrade Pride. I don't know what year exactly, or recent. And here, if we remember where it came from underdogs, outcasts, that were trying to liberate themselves, that were trying to liberate the Christopher Street, that were saying, yes, we want to go out, we want not to be shamed again by the society. And then now it became something in capitalism that can be used to sell things, to sell different items, consumption and so on. And then it becomes something as like a litmus test for democracy, and we can even manage to militarize the police without gay pride. Then, excuse my language, we're fucked. But we are. And so it's quite tricky how to turn it around again, and how to be solidary within also this realm of capitalist. And I mean, it's now so many years ago, but to still say post-communist countries like also Serbia and so on, because the nationalism and the EU possession process and so on has changed it in a very neoliberal, but at the same time militarized take. And this is a very dangerous time. And I was thinking today how to end this lecture performance without being just totally, what the fuck? What has come out of this whole thing? And I would like to end with something that was also done by activists in Belgrade, the queer-feminist. And they also said, like, this idea that we can only have one political aim, that is to hold gay pride without seeing what is happening left and right. We need to connect these different struggles and to also fight fascism and capitalism. But at the moment, I'm pretty more like, let's start with fascism and then undo the capitalism. I should not speak. You should.
Maybe I start?
Mm-hmm.
Because this...
You're right on time.
Yeah. As you said, it is very tricky, and you also said maybe now facing a political situation also in Austria that you refer to, we should really start to fight fascism and then think about how to fight capitalism. When things become so urgent, the urgency of matters. But we discussed this topic a lot because I think also it is, it is also somehow a privilege to allow this criticality, because as we know, the situation for some people is different in different countries or in different regions of the world, and it is all this synchronicity. At the same time, in 2019, it is not a problem to be out and queer in Vienna, but it is still a problem to be out and queer in, you say it.
Yeah, but in Serbia you have, what is she?
Prime
Vice
Minister.
President or?
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, lesbian Prime Minister.
And you
And you can be AfD, lesbian politician.
we know this, yes.
And we also have the Prime Minister, the gay one. But he doesn't do the
It's not
coming out.
proof yet. Okay.
He still needs to stand like what you show.
You have to help him.
Yeah, that's a good. We can talk about also Austrian.
No, I'm totally. I see the ambivalence, and I agree. You can be a fascist and you can be. Yes, I agree to this. But still, I think we should not pour the baby with the bath.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. It is for me. It is. There is not one answer to this question or to this dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Christiane, I promised you queer feelings. That's what you ordered.
I have. Because at the same time, today on the train we talked about these images, how Vienna is already advertising for Europride, because this year, in June, Vienna will be the host of Europride, and there is a bunch of queer people on this front page, and one has a lederhosen. So, and leather is also so. It is so symbolic in this context, and Marty smiled and said, really? And I said, well, no, chaps, no, not like leather, like a leather man, but a traditional, a folkloristic cloth, like this lederhosen. And this you also have. You have this lederhosen schwule,
Yes.
or lederhosen lesbian, and I don't know. I still believe in this subcultural. Potential, or like this in subversion through affirmation, but probably these times are over. I don't know. It was not a question, because I know your answers, but it was more a comment, a comment.
Really, I feel like we're having a long-term relationship and we are at the end of it. I'm doing the clothes and
Should I help you? Because I do the clothes.
no, don't help me, please. It will be a mess.
Yeah.
But what is your experience from, like, sometimes, for example, this idea of compulsory optimism, so that this idea of you just come out, you just do your thing, you just, live it up to what you can be. I mean, this is very much also not only about sexualities and so on. It's very much it has been very much the texture of capitalism, of just be who you want to be and you can do anything you want and we will assimilate you into capitalism. It will work, no worries. But then sometimes I have the impression, but people are kind of, we tried, but it doesn't really feel right, or I don't know. What do you think? I have time, I do this. I enjoy the silence very much, I must say. I don't mind it at all. I know you're having thoughts.
Ruby will help.
Hi, Toby! I missed you. I thought you would come on the couch. No, this is the after performance. You know? We did it before a little bit. Yeah. You like my socks? I like them too. Yeah. Queer performances maybe also show reproductive work. Want an egg? Want an egg? Yeah, because life goes on after performances.
You should think about performance with the dog.
Yes. Can I eat? How much is it? What does he or she eat? Eggs?
Now it's looking like eggs, yeah. or just the rest of the eggs.
I have one more egg. You should, you know, I thought I'd bring two in case something happens. I think I'm finished soon.
Will you do some? Why did you put on these training trousers?
It's fit for the nation. Huh?
Yeah, fit for, now I get it.
Come on, how much? It's all.
Yes,
so
yes, yes.
I don't
Okay.
have
Sorry,
a lederhosen.
Sorry, yes, okay. Yes, it's the queer version of the lederhosen.
The nationalist.
Yes, yes. I understand. I have to take another picture because now I understood.
I mean, should I
Took a while, sorry.
come on, I can put on Strache again, and now I said his name, but he had all these red, white,
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
come on, you've been doing this work for so long, you should be able to read it. So, I think I will finish here. And maybe you can put on some music, maybe people can relax a little bit more, and then you can talk to each other about what to do.